Something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the
No,
water?
there's just something in the fucking water.
Alien is back in the theaters with Alien Romulus, and this one is totally awesome. It pays homage to the previous Alien films while being an amazing and terrifying film in its own right. I love that you don't have to see any of the Alien films to enjoy this movie, but if you're an Alien fan, you'll be able to enjoy this movie on a whole different level. We're going to break down this movie and talk about how this film fits into the Alien franchise and timeline, and discuss some Easter eggs and references that you might have missed. But first, spoiler warning, you've been warned. Alien Romulus is the 9th film in the franchise. The film starts on 9th of February 2142, which is about 20 years after the first 1979 Alien movie, which took place in 2022, and takes place 37 years before the 1986 Aliens movie, which supposedly takes place in 2179. This means that during this movie, Ellen Ripley is still floating out there in space after destroying the Nostromo. The movie Prometheus takes place in 2093, which means that Prometheus takes place 49 years before this film, and Alien Covenant takes place in 2104, which is about 38 years before this movie. Fede Alvarez, who directed the 2013 Evil Dead movie and the 2016 Don't Breathe, directs this film. Ridley Scott, who directed the first Alien movie and the two prequels, Alien Prometheus and Alien Covenant, is the producer of this movie. The movie starts with the destroyed wreckage of the Nostromo, the ship where the first 1979 movie took place. We meet our protagonist, Rain Carradine, who's dreaming of living on a sunny paradise planet. She wakes up and we realize that she is stuck on a hellish mining colony called Jackson Star on LV-410, run by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. The colony never gets any sunlight and the inhabitants live in perpetual nighttime. An announcement says that anyone with a cough must report themselves for quarantine, and this is due to the fact that humans and our immune system have not evolved to fight the potential pathogens of this world, and therefore contracting an alien illness can potentially wipe out large populations of people, and presumably the infected person will be isolated until the alien bacteria or virus kills them. This will foreshadow Andy's calculation to separate those that are infected by the xenomorphs in order to protect the rest of the group. Rain also has a perpetual motion drinking bird toy that the crew of the Nostromo had, and incidentally, if you grew up in the 1970s, these happy dippy bird toys were everywhere. And apparently these toys have made a comeback in the 22nd century. Rain is played by Kaylee Spaney, who played the young Lynn Chaney in the Vice movie, and Priscilla Presley in Priscilla. We meet Andy, whom we assume is her adopted brother, who appears to be on the spectrum. He has a string of dad jokes and he's very socially awkward. We learn that she is orphaned after both her parents died by Lyme disease. The people of Jackson Star are indentured servants and must work off their indentured servitude for years in order to get off the mining planet. After toiling away for 5 years, Rain has finally met her quota to leave the mining colony. When she applies to leave, the clerk randomly raises her quota, and Rain is told that her quota has been raised for another 5 years. We sense that Rain, as well as everyone in this mining colony, live at the mercy of this administration, and that their lives are simply cheap to them. Outside, her brother Andy is attacked by a group of young punks, and when he's damaged, we learn that Andy is an android that has been programmed by Rain's father to protect and take care of her. Andy is played by British actor David Johnson. Rain visits her friends, consisting of her ex-boyfriend Tyler, his pregnant sister Kay, their cousin Bjorn, who is the father of Kay's baby, and Bjorn's adopted sister Navarro. Kay is played by Isabella Merced, who played Dora the Explorer in the 2019 Dora and the Lost City of Gold, and she played Anya Corazon in Madam Web, and will play Hawkgirl in the upcoming James Gunn Superman movie. They recruit Rain on a mission to take their hauler, the Corbalon, and rendezvous with an abandoned research station called the Renaissance. The Renaissance is divided into two sections, the Romulus and the Remus. And Weyland-Yutani is conducting scientific experiments in space aboard the two sections, the Romulus and the Remus, and this is a reference to the infant twins Romulus and Remus, who were raised by wolves. While founding a city along the Tiber River, the two argued and Romulus killed his brother Remus. Romulus went on to found the ancient city of Rome, which became the Great Roman Empire. The term Renaissance refers to the 14th century Christian Rome, when Italy discovered long-lost classical works of the Greek and Roman period, leading Europe out of its dark ages and into the modern era. The team's plan is to sneak aboard the Renaissance, break in, and scavenge abandoned cryogenic fuel cells, which should provide enough energy and fuel for the Corbalon hauler to make it to the paradise planet of Yvaga. This is a 9-year journey for the ship to make. So far, the team only has 2 years worth of fuel and needs to find more fuel cells in order to make the journey to Yvaga. The word Yvaga means heaven in Guarani language of the indigenous people of South America. The team needs Rain and Andy because Andy can interface with the Renaissance computers, giving the team access to the base. One of the team members is Bjorn, who is openly hostile to Andy. This is because he hates synthetic organisms, because during a gas leak, a synthetic organism made the logical call to seal the area and killed his parents in order to save the rest of the miners. The concept of sacrificing one to save many will be the theme explored in this movie. This movie will also explore themes of loyalty and family, as well as corporate greed oppressing the working man. When Bjorn calls him a synthetic, Andy says he prefers the term artificial person, which is the same thing that Bishop said in Aliens. I also appreciate how much the look of Alien Romulus resembles the look of Alien and Aliens. That's the problem with some modern movies, is that they look completely different from the original movies. Director Fede Alvarez, who is a huge fan of the original Alien movies, wanted Alien Romulus to look exactly like those movies, as if it took place in the same universe. Therefore, the sets were built to resemble Alien and Aliens, and Alvarez also constantly played the original two movies on the set of Alien Romulus so that the actors would understand and exude the vibe and energy level of the first two movies. When the crew arrives on the Renaissance, we learn that artificial people, androids, are not allowed on Yovaga, and that Rain knew this. And Andy seems genuinely hurt by Rain's betrayal, making us wonder if androids can indeed feel human emotions. And as the team leaves the Corbelan to board the Renaissance, Andy fiddles with a tether. And this is director Fede Alvarez just showing off his directorial skills, because he is setting up the tether that Rain will use to tether herself to the ship when ejecting the offspring at the end of the movie. And on board the Renaissance, Bjorn notices a painting that has a creepy scene of multiple people dying, and one of the details in the painting shows a young child suckling at her dead mother's breasts. This will of course foreshadow the end of the movie when the offspring also suckles his mother, Kay, to death. The painting is called View of the Hotel de Ville of Marseille during the plague of 1720, and it was painted by Michel Serres, and it depicts a plague erupting in the port city of Marseille. An appropriate metaphor, considering that the aliens themselves will be a plague upon humanity. The team stumbles upon a seemingly destroyed android, which we'll later meet. While retrieving cryogenic fuel for the stasis chambers, Tyler, Bjorn, and Andy accidentally disable the temperature control mechanism, keeping the facehuggers in a frozen state of hibernation, and as the temperature raises, the facehuggers begin to wake up. Andy cannot open the doors because he does not have the proper security clearance, so Rain takes a chip from a damaged android and places it in Andy, assuming that it may provide Andy with the security clearance to open the doors. When the chip is inserted into Andy, it upgrades his entire system. Andy freezes while rebooting, and his eyes roll back into his head, and we see the back of his eyes have the Weyland-Yutani logo. However, this changes his prime directive to no longer take care of Rain, but rather to benefit the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. Andy is no longer the awkward and stuttering, malfunctioning android, but a new, sleek, efficient, and powerful being. As they are running away from the facehuggers and escaping, a facehugger jumps on Navarro and, well, hugs her face, evoking the facehugging scene of Kane in the Alien movie. They activate the destroyed android, who turns out to be Ash, or rather another android who is the same model as Ash. This one is named Rook, who warns the team that the facehugger may have already implanted its seed inside Navarro. Now, Rook is created using both deepfake CGI technology and a model of actor Ian Holm, and is voiced by Daniel Betts. Fede Alvarez went to Ian Holmes' estate and spoke to his widowed wife, Sophie de Stempel, and all of Ian Holmes' children. Family was happy to give Fede Alvarez permission to use Ian Holmes' likeness because Holm had wanted to be in more Hollywood movies and was upset that Hollywood had stopped hiring him after The Hobbit. They felt that this was a way to have Ian Holm be in one last Hollywood movie, which is exactly what the actor would have wanted. The studios already had a CGI model of a younger Ian Holm due to The Hobbit movie, and this was used for the deepfake effect. We then see the xenomorph that the scientists were working on. This is XX-121, which is the xenomorph from the Nostromo in the 1979 Alien movie. You can still see that it has the harpoon that Ripley shot with her harpoon gun. Rook explains that the xenomorph can survive the depths of space by forming a chrysalis shell around itself, protecting itself from the cold vacuum of space, surviving without oxygen or food for an indefinite period of time. And Rook calls it the perfect organism, echoing what Ash called it in Alien. The team is able to remove the facehugger by freezing it, and Andy makes a calculation that Navarro has likely been infected and must be separated from the rest of the crew. He chases after Navarro, but Bjorn and Navarro make it back to the Corbelan. Unfortunately, it's too late. Navarro was infected, and the chestburster emerges from Navarro, killing her. The Corbelan with Kay and Bjorn aboard is sent spinning out of control, and the Corbelan crashes into the Romulus hangar, which throws the station's orbit off, leaving them only 1 hour before the Romulus collides into the planet's rings, not the original 36 hours they thought they had. Bjorn discovers that the chestburster has gestated, and he kills it with a stun rod, but it penetrates his eye and then drops acid all over him, killing him instantly. Since the facehuggers can't see and detect objects by heat and noise, Rain and Tyler walk through a room full of facehuggers by raising the temperature of the room and being very, very quiet. However, they get nervous, and since fear causes them to sweat, their temperature raises. And Andy says,
Run.
They get to Kay, but Andy won't open the door. He has correctly deduced that the xenomorph is tracking them and has lured them into a trap. If they open the door, they're all dead, and Andy refuses to open the door to Rain's dismay. Kay is taken by the xenomorphs. We assume that Kay is dead, but remember in Aliens that xenomorphs will take humans to be eaten later for food like they did with Newt. And when Rain asks Andy how he could do that, he looks at her and asks, "What, leave someone behind?" We realize that Andy was genuinely hurt that Rain was going to abandon him and go to Yavaga alone. And please, just remember to hit that subscribe button. This is a new channel that started 2 weeks ago, and our goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers in the next 2 weeks. Please take a second to help us out. It costs you nothing, but it does encourage me to make more of these videos. Our team makes it back to the lab, and we see that Weyland-Yutani scientists have been experimenting with Xenomorph's black goo, otherwise known as Compound Z01, and they have injected it into a lab rat. The rat dies, but then is resurrected and healed, and later as the team moves on, we the audience ominously see that the rat has mutated into a horrific alien beast. Rook tells Andy that his new mission is to ensure that the black goo, Compound Z01, that the scientists have extracted from the Xenomorphs is taken to Weyland-Yutani headquarters. And Rook calls it the Prometheus Fire, a reference to the title of the Prometheus movie, which in turn is a reference to the Greek Titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to man, and had to spend eternity in punishment from the gods. Rook says that Prometheus Fire can help humans evolve to the next perfect level. Rain and Tyler arm themselves with F-44A pulse rifles with automatic aim, similar to the M41A marine rifles in Aliens. However, Andy realizes that they can't shoot the xenomorphs because their acid blood will destroy the hull of the ship, killing them all. Tyler hopes that they can bluff the xenomorphs into a standoff with the pulse rifles. Tyler and Rain rescue Kay, but Tyler is killed by the xenomorph and Andy is incapacitated. Rain and Kay almost make it to the Corbelan, but Rain decides that she must go back for her brother Andy, and she refuses to leave him behind. This is a move that echoes Ripley going back for Newt, and she tells Kay to go on ahead and she goes back to save Andy. She removes the Weyland-Yutani chip, and this downgrades Andy back to his old awkward but loyal form that she knows and loves. Rook tells him that he won't open the doors. He says, "I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies." And this is a callback to Ash, who said the same thing in Alien. As the xenomorphs approach, Rain and Andy comfort each other with bad dad jokes. And he says, "I read a book about zero gravity. I just couldn't put it down." And this gives Rain an idea. She realizes that the acid can't destroy the floor if there's no gravity. She shuts off the artificial gravity to the Romulus, and then she begins to destroy the xenomorphs. She cuts them down with her pulse rifle, and the acid suspends in the zero gravity air, not touching or damaging the hull of the ship, while Andy and Rain float through the air, avoiding the splashes of acid. Kay, who is pregnant and in pain, decides to inject herself with the black goo in order to heal and survive. Andy and Rain almost make it back, but Rain is captured by a xenomorph, and Andy comes to the rescue with the artificial gravity restored. Andy grabs Rain's gun and pours down a hail of bullets onto the xenomorph and says, "Get away from her, you bitch," evoking the iconic line spoken by Ellen Ripley in Aliens.
"Get away from her, you bitch!"
Arguably the most famous line in the entire franchise. Rain and Andy make it back onto the Corbelan and escape the Romulus just before it crashes into the rings, destroying Rook and the aliens on board. Rain, Andy, and Kay set off for Yavaga, and it appears to be a happy ending. But this is an Alien movie after all, and Alien and Aliens have a surprise fourth act. Suddenly, Kay is totally affected by the black goo that she injected into herself, and she gives birth to a pod. This evokes Elizabeth Shaw's pregnancy and surgical cesarean removal in Alien Prometheus. The pod grows fast and rapidly grows into a grotesque human xenomorph hybrid known as the Offspring. It first hatches into an alien with a human baby face, then grows up into a creepy and nefarious looking being that resembles a tall, thin, deformed engineer. This Offspring, as creepy and alien as he looks, is not CGI. It's a practical effect, and it is played by a real person. 24-year-old Robert Bobrovsky, who stands at a staggering 7 foot 7 inches, played the Offspring with makeup and prosthetics. Bobrovsky was a Romanian basketball player who now lives in Ohio and played college basketball for one season for Rochester University. Unfortunately, he had to give up playing basketball due to joint and movement issues as well as scoliosis, and is now trying to break into Hollywood films. The Offspring manifests a second mouth and feeds on Kay by suckling from her, draining her blood until she dies. It injures Andy, but Kay is able to get into a spacesuit and goes onto the cargo hold. She ejects herself and the Offspring into space, but she has tethered herself to the Corbalon and survives. The Offspring is destroyed into space, but Rain is safe. She gets back onto the Corbalon and sets a course to Yavaga, places Andy and herself into a hibernation chamber, presumably to wake up in the sequel to this movie. And for a full breakdown of the amazing MCU film Deadpool and Wolverine, click on the video link here.